Host Christine Marie, and I am thrilled for today's conversation. We are talking about how to move from the hustle, the head down type of approach that so many of us exist in our businesses, where frankly, life is passing us by while we're on the job site, while we're behind our computer, while we're working and engaging with men on the field. And our kids are growing up and relationships are literally slipping through our fingers as a result of not having the proper systems in place. And what Mike Abramowitz is here to talk about is the 257 companies that he has impacted through this very process that he's going to introduce to us, the 60,000 plus hours that he has allowed for and really cultivated freedom for so many business owners in the trades like you and beyond. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us here today. What we're going to talk about is so important, and I'm grateful to have you with us.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Mike, you have a really powerful why when it comes to your story and what has positioned you to be able to help people in the blue collar field. I love the way that you talk about it. You say blue collar hustle with white collar systems, because there is so often this dissonance of, the white collar is more so wearing the nice, pretty suits and working behind the computer. And then the blue collar is they actually have the grit and the wherewithal to get shit done. And that's actually what you say. You say you help people become free by getting shit done, and especially using AI. It looks like we just switched your camera view. It's a good view, but we did switch it.
There we go.
There we go. So Mike, can you talk a little bit about what has transpired leading you up till now, especially in relationship to your dad? Your dad's been in the trades for 45 plus years. So I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for giving me the chance to just share the story. And we could go in any direction, but I'll just share the origin. Dad, he's 84, started a plumbing company. I'm 40. And the same way he operates his plumbing company today at 84, he still works 6 days a week. He still answers every phone call.
Wow.
He still goes through different workers through the different seasons. And he goes to the gym, he goes dancing 3 nights a week, goes to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, he's super active and healthy, and I love him for that. He's ambitious, he's hardworking, he's fun loving, he's super generous. I learned how to give and how to help other people through a lot of his acts of service. So a lot of great attributes. Growing up, I wish that he attended more of like my National Honor Society or basketball games or any of those types of things. So growing up in New Jersey, youngest of 8, and I was sharing with you in the green room that I'm now the youngest of 9, because a couple of years ago, new brother Chuck went to ancestry.com and realized that we're siblings. So my dad had an oopsie when he was like 17 or 18 years old. So youngest of 9, and there's a large gap between my siblings and myself. So I grew up like a big mama's boy. Like my dad told me when I was 18, I was getting ready to go to college, and he's like, you'll be back in like 2 weeks. You're not going to be able to last on your own type of like challenge, I guess, the good fatherly challenge there. But I shared with you, or before we click record, that mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer when I was 16. She passed away when I was 20. And that was a really tough season for me because I was studying engineering in college. And I had this like pressure from like dad's voice in my head, like, don't fail, essentially. So It was just like, I just knew how to work. I had work ethic, I had grit, and that's all I was going to do. So I paid my way through college selling Cutco kitchen knives. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 20, and I bought my first house when I was 20, and second house was 21. Mom's life insurance, had 3 rental properties before I graduated college. And then with my engineering degree, I decided to open up a career office with Cutco. And then I trained about 5,000 other students to do what I did as a college kid, which is how to learn leadership, selling, and all of that. We did about $20 million in that business. I retired from that business after about 20 years of doing that. But the part of the story that I think is relevant is that during my 20s, there was a lot of valleys. That real estate, the market collapsed in 2008. I was negative $130,000 in debt. I had a
Right.
400 credit score. I mean, I just, all I did was grind. I grinded. I ran every single seat in my business. I was administrative. I was sales. I was hiring. I was payroll. Every single seat everything was relying on me. So like, there's no time for a relationship. There was no time for health. There was no time for
Right.
fun. Until I hired a business coach to kind of help me see that there was another way of doing the same thing, because all I knew was how to work hard, because that's what was modeled for me. But he had an experience in India scaling a company from 6 million to 30 million with 1,400 people underneath him. So he showed me how to like corporatize my small business with like systems and automation and hiring offshore assistants. They were like foreign concepts to me. I was just like, I didn't understand any of that, but he showed me how to do it. And I wanted that because I fell in love with my now wife, and we got married in 2017. I was like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So that's what happened. So out of the grind and the, I don't know if it's a clean show, but like the shit, essentially, out of the tough, came this desire to want to create a predictable business. And luckily I did, because in 2020, obviously COVID hit, but our son was born on New Year's Eve of 2020 at 1 pound 4 ounces.
Oh
So
my
he was a micro preemie. He was 1 pound 4 ounces, and he was due in April, born on New Year's Eve. And we were in the NICU with him in the ICU for 8.5 months. So for 254 days. And during
wow.
that time, the business that my coach helped me build in those predictability was able to run without me, still do 7 figures in sales without me there. And that's when my wife became a full-time medical mom. I called my business coach and I said, do you think we could partner up and teach other business owners how to create predictability in their business, so that way they don't have to wait for a circumstance to happen? And that's the origin of what we're doing at Better Than Rich. So those now over 100,000 hours and over 290 businesses that we've been able to support. It's not to like help them prepare for if their kid is in the hospital like me, but it's like if they want to go on a vacation without their cell phone, or if they want to be at family dinner at 6 p.m. and like not have to like be constantly in reaction mode all the time. We want to give these guys, like my dad 30 years ago, just an opportunity to have options and allow the business to be a vehicle for their life and not be their life. So that's a very long, short version of the story, and we could go in any direction that you see fit.
The last line you said, be the vehicle for their life rather than be their life. Mike, it's really, I just want to honor you for a moment, because so often what is modeled for us is what we automatically do. And it's like you were starting to do that, living in autopilot, modeling your dad. And yet you were able to, thank God, honestly, put in the systems that were necessary for you to, you didn't wait until it was too late. You had everything in place so that when this devastation came, you were able to be with your wife, because how many times has things like that happen? Life happens, and the husband isn't able to sit with the wife in the grief and in the processing and in the time of, actually, you were able to be in the NICU with your son. Imagine if you weren't able to do that. So there's so many elements. And what I want to just draw that distinction and that very stark difference between how your father is currently still living versus how you have chosen to live. And every single person listening has the opportunity to choose. Am I going to be 84 years old, looking back without these deep relationships, or am I going to allow for freedom? But there's a cost to both, right? There's a cost to both ways of living. I love that you actually brought some color to your dad, that he's out dancing and he still does have fun, but he's working 6 days a week, and there's actually a dissonance on the relationship side. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I got to give my dad credit, because he's way better than his parents were. So my dad is raised in the slums of Trenton, no hot water, bed bugs, roaches, no money. Like his dad was a big gambler and like hitting the bottle, and his mom was kind of like pretty absent. So he was the youngest as well. So his like older sister is like 9 years older than him. He tells a story about like he was freezing and he was sick, and she just like laid coats on them because they had no heat and hot water. And he tells me that story because he said he thought he was going to die that night. He was like 4 years old or something, and his parents weren't around. Like, so my dad's upbringing, he really didn't have one. He was like this lone survivor. And so he could only give what he was able to. What's the saying? The saying, yeah, I cannot give to others what I do not have for myself. So he never like knew how to nurture or like be loving and warm and stuff like that. He just did the best that he possibly could.
Right.
So I want to give that sentiment there. So, but it took a lot of
Yeah.
time and therapy and journaling and reflection for me to have and find the empathy for his lived experiences, while
Mm,
also simultaneously having the desire and the wants for me to have the dad that I also want in my life,
yeah.
and also encourage and challenge and create the relationship that I want to have with him. So there does take a lot of intentionality there. It's not perfect by any means, but I just wanted to capture that. I went on this little tangent to not to avoid the actual question, but I just want to make sure that there is
Yeah.
color. And the challenges that he has with some of the relationships is because of how he was raised. The decisions that he's made has been about survival. So he
Yeah.
made an allegiance to Israel when he was younger, because he was born in the early 40s, 1941. He saw like everything that was happening in the Holocaust. He made an allegiance. He's going to be there for Israel. So he fought in the 6 Day War. He fought in the Yom Kippur War. And when he had my older siblings, he decided I made an allegiance to Israel. And he like left his wife and kids to go to Israel to fight in a war. And then he did the same shit when I was a kid when the Gulf War was taking place with his little kids at home. And like, this just gives me a lens of like, again, lone wolf survivor, but a person of his word, to his faith, to purpose, to things that matter most to him. So that doesn't mean relationships didn't matter. It's just he never was taught that really relationships should matter.
Mm,
But now at 84, he's trying to do the best he can, right? So uh,
yes. Yeah.
but I'm doing the best I can at observing that, finding the empathy, finding the compassion to suffer with him through some
Mm,
of those, trying to find as much patience as I can and understanding, while simultaneously like, hey dude, like I want you in my kids' lives. You gotta do some stuff. And I sometimes I find myself reverse coaching him, which I hate, but that's the role I'm in sometimes. All right. I digress a little bit. So let me kick it back to you though.
I love it. I appreciate the color there because frankly, every single one of us has a deep, we were talking about the why when we first started, why in terms of what can motivate us, but then also why in the subconscious because of our lived experience that perhaps we actually haven't worked through. And you mentioned hours of therapy and counseling, which I so respect because now you can actually enter into him and his lived experience. And you said even coaching him, like there is something where sometimes the kids do actually start parenting the parents, whether they intend to or not. And isn't that how it's actually supposed to be? I was thinking about the generational kind of legacy of as the adults get older, they end up getting where they actually really need support at towards the end of their life, and then the children start parenting the parent. And what a beautiful cycle of life where the parents gave so much to the children. And so there's something I actually think very fitting about that, where we're
I also
actually able to really give.
reparenting little Michael too. So
Yeah.
my parts, those childhood parts. So I don't know if you ever have talked about that on the show, but we could always go in that direction too. But there's a lot of that
Let's,
inner work of reparenting the little kid in me too. So anyway, but
mm,
sorry.
well, Michael, I actually, let's go in that direction. Let's talk about that, and then I want to come back to systems, if that's okay with you. Do you have time for that to stay on
I am
subject?
all yours. I'm here for it.
Love
So
it.
whatever.
I love it. What you just brought up is incredibly important. And one of the things about the craft and calling is that we actually do go into some of these topics because we recognize that in the legacy that we want to leave behind, so much of that is the work that we do today. We're actively creating our legacy now, and it requires work. It requires looking in the mirror so that at the end of our life, we don't look back with regret. And we might have some, but the more intentional we're able to live and the more intentional we are to create the life that we want and the legacy that we want, the better. So, can you talk a little bit about what you were just alluding to?
Sure. And I will lay this frame. The only way I'm able to do the inner work is because I've created the systems in the business to buy back the time. So I have time freedom to do some self inner
Mhm.
reflection. If I was so caught up, when I was so caught up in the business, there was no time for self reflection. There was no time for doing deep work and breath work and coaching and all this stuff. It was just like, I got to go make money. I got to go handle my responsibilities, right? Responsibility, ability to respond. And the thing I was responding to was debt, So,
Yes.
um, during those seasons of struggle and suffering, like it was tough to do the introspection work. However, now that I'm in a season where I set up my schedule and I set up my business that has boundaries protecting my priorities, I have every Monday as a personal day. I have every morning. I have every evening. I have Saturdays for my kids, for my wife to take a break, and I have Sundays for the family where we go out together. I have Thursdays as a date with my wife. So like we have a babysitter that comes. So like I set up a schedule where I could be really intentional. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I can work on my business on Mondays, and I'm able to have the type of results that we want to have. So I think that context is important. I mean, in 2023. I was able to have this schedule working 30 hours a week in the business, space to work on the business, still take 9 full weeks off and set
Mhm.
aside over 6 figures in savings. And this is on a one household income because my wife became a full-time medical mom and not having my wife have to go back to work in 5 years. So it's like I
Wow.
live, I live the principles that I teach, but I only can do that because I've created the space to make working
Yes.
a priority. So all that, what I was alluding to was the deep work about the wounds that I had as a kid, the dad I wanted, or the mom I wanted, or the siblings I wanted, the mentorship that I wanted that I didn't have. My vice was food. So I was a real chubby kid. I snuck Twinkies into my bedroom. I was the kid who I was like 250 pounds was my highest, I think, going into high school. So like I was a big boy. I was bullied. I had pimples, freckles, braces, glasses. I mean, I had nicknames like Snacks or the Hunchback of Israel. The Hunchback of Israel was a harsh one, right?
Oh,
Abramowitz, right? Like these are just harsh, like bully, like getting in fist fights, like all of this stuff that this poor little kid, um, and then his older siblings are like 9 years older than him and 20 years older than him that are like tough. Like my three older brothers are bodybuilders for crying out loud. My dad was a bodybuilder for crying out loud, right? So it's just like so much that felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a part of the tribe. I wasn't like everyone else in my family. So therefore I was different. So now it's like this 40-year-old man being who I'm becoming, trying to do my best for my 4-year-old and 1-year-old, soon to be 5 and 2, to not project little Michael's insecurities that I had as a kid onto them as I'm parenting them. So how do I do that? I sit with Michael. I do an ice bath each morning and I ground and I stand in the earth and I do a little morning prayer for myself and I will go to the gym and I'll do yoga and I will journal and I'll reflect and
mhm.
I'll give little Michael a voice. I've done exercises like non-dominant hand writing as Michael to my 40-year-old self, and then my dominant hand with my right hand writing a letter back to little Michael as to my 40-year-old self, having a conversation with my 10-year-old self. So it's like, what's the purpose? Is so I don't project my deep childhood wounds onto my kids. So I don't have to raise my kids to survive my childhood. I could raise my kids to survive their own childhood that they get a chance to experience. So that's a very long, loaded response, and we could go in a lot of different directions there. But I think it's enough for the listener to say, by creating systems and predictability in my business, if I choose to do some of the deep work, I can. But this is some scary shit. I'm not telling you to go do the deep work. I'm not suggesting it because it's a little uncomfortable, very vulnerable and scary. But it's nice to at least have the option to choose to do the deep work if you wanted to. Or you could just do other type of work if you wanted to do that too. I just choose this because I do want to. I do want to have deep relationships with my kids, but also with other people in my life. And the more I can understand myself, the better I'll be able to relate with others.
Mm, that's so good. One of our core pillars for the craft and calling is connection, and that growth is relational. However, it starts with us doing the work and going inward first, so that we're not, you said the word projecting. I'm so grateful for this example and this story that you gave about not teaching our children to survive our childhood, but being able to really handle ourselves, do the work, and be emotionally mature. We talk about the cultivation of intellectual intelligence, which lends to systems and cultivating the things in our business that allow for us to be able to do this work, to then cultivate emotional intelligence, even physical intelligence. You were talking about struggles with weight. How much is our physical well-being a reflection of our emotional health? And that will always impact those around us, whether it's on the business or at home. And so really what you're talking about is actually a very core part of the ethos of what it is to be a full-fledged successful human, because it's not just about having a successful business. We want to be ourselves successful in the legacy we're leaving behind. So Mike, with that, can we talk a little bit more about, if let's say somebody does want to start, let's say they've never even thought about cultivating emotional intelligence, like where do they start? What thickens should they do?
Yeah. If you want to do, the very simplest thing is just write these questions down and just answer them, because that's what journaling is for me. The first question is, how do I feel?
Mm.
Simple. Grab a pen, write the question, how do I feel? And just let the pen write itself. I feel excited. I feel nervous. I feel angst. I feel sad. I feel worried. I feel happy. And then it's like, the next question is, why do I feel these emotions?
Mm.
And then let the pen write itself. I feel happy because I was able to take my kid to school this morning. I feel sad because my wife is overwhelmed with this thing that she's working on. I feel overwhelmed because all these jobs and all these things, and my team is worried about me. I feel overwhelmed because so and so just quit. I feel frustrated because no one's following this and this. Great. So now we acknowledge I feel this and why I'm feeling this. If we just did those two things, we're ahead of the curve, because now we're at least acknowledging the feelings that we often suppress. So if we just do those two, that's great. If you want to be an overachiever, the next two questions are really great. The next two question is, how do I want to feel?
Yes.
And if we answer that, now we're creating a reframe. So it's like, how do I want to feel? I want to feel empowered. I want to feel certain. I want to feel this. Then it's the fourth question is, what are the actions I can take to feel that? And now we put emotions into action. So I feel what I was feeling. I understand. I acknowledge why I was feeling that. I reframe it to how I want to feel. And then it's, these are the actions. Let me go execute and just move forward with a new set of intentions, without letting the jaded emotions that were lingering in my unconscious nervous system take control. So very basic. I do that check-in very frequently. And I think it's a really simple way for someone to get into the emotional intelligence space. Where I started, I don't know, 15 years ago at this point. I mean, I'm a 7-time firewalker with Tony Robbins and traveled the country. I have 9 books, and I spent like so much time and money and dollars and resources and energy in the emotional intelligence, personal growth, self-awareness space. But that is like such a great starting place for someone.
Such a good starting place. I'd love for us to, and we're going to get to systems, I promise. I'd love for us to, before we do, I think this might be the last question before we get there. You mentioned nervous system, and you talked about your dad living in survival. When we're making decisions out of a survival place, we're never able to get to the place of really abundance, because we're trapped in our nervous system is literally trapping us mentally, our ability to even vision bigger. Can you talk a little bit about that and the part that the physical nervous system plays in relation to visioning the life that you want?
Yeah. Oh boy. How much time we got? No, I'm just kidding. Here's what happens. The moment we just try to there's sympathetic nervous system and there's the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic, without getting like so woo woo out there, it's just like rest, digest, breathe. These are the things that are happening to rejuvenate the body. And then the sympathetic nervous system is just like, everything is like achieving outside world. So think about like outside of me and then inside of me. So the body and the mind, there's this connection between the two, where the mind can think about stressful things and the body will feel stressed, even if there's no stress happening in my life, because the mind is creating a sympathetic action type of feeling, and my body is responding to these thoughts as if it was happening. So the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system are connected in that way, all through thoughts. So what we try to do is just acknowledge what those thoughts are, so the body can actually try to rest. And that is hard to do, especially when we're constantly in reaction mode and we're in distraction mode. Distraction and reaction are the like catalysts for stress. So what I just intentionally encourage people to do, and what I do for myself, is to not settle into the distraction and the reaction as much as I possibly can, to just be. And how to just be is a lot easier said than done, but it's like the doom scrolling on social, or the comparison on things, or the reaction of text messages or emails or calls and all of those things. That's why I'll give you a framework that works for business called the time rich 6 that I'll talk about. But like, knowing that exists, this fire, fight, or flight or fight, responding, reacting is happening. And we can mitigate that as long as we're aware that is happening by shutting down the devices, removing the distraction reaction, sitting, being, and I'm going to use a very harsh word that most people listening to this podcast absolutely hate, and I'm going to say it, being bored. Most of us hate being bored. So what we do is we try to find reaction and distraction to avoid the feeling of boredom. However, on the other end of boredom is where creativity exists. So if we just can settle into positive boredom and sitting with ourselves and those thoughts and just being without reaction, distraction, on the other end of that, creativity of, what if I did have that conversation? What if I did that, build that thing in my business? What if I did pursue that? Like, that's where the beautiful magic happens. But most of us don't give ourselves a chance to be there and get there, because once we feel bored, we want to use an addiction or settle into dopamine hits, or, try to create a different chemical balance, because boredom sucks, man. I'm not productive if I'm bored, blah, 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 whatever. That's all right. Anyway.
Yes. The letting go of needing to do all the time to allow space for just being. And frankly, our family can sense that shift in us when we move from a state of doing to a state of being, because then we're actually able to listen. A lot of times what a 5-year-old is saying is not stimulating, And so if we're really able to settle in to allow for getting on the other side of boredom, creativity, also with the way that we play with them, 2 and 5, man, it's just what beautiful ages. And so if we don't actually have access to creativity within us, we've got really nothing to connect with them over, because they're at such a young age where there's not much stimuli apart from that. Tell me a little bit about.
So hard. All of this sounds so good on a podcast, Christine. You're like, oh my God, this guy must be the best. No effing way. Just because I know this stuff does not mean I'm an expert at it. I struggle. I have so much, but it is an intention. So the purpose, coming back to the initial question we had, the purpose is to pursue. It's like, I want to pursue being this version of me. And as long as I stay in that pursuit, then I feel like I'm living in that purpose. It's like pursuit of excellence, or pursuit of, and excellence is maybe even not in the best word. It's like pursuit of just being present. Yeah, it's like pursuit of presence is really what it is. Because fulfillment is inside the presence, and that's really what I want. I want fulfillment. I want euphoric emotion, but I also want to feel the sadness and depressed and angst, because from the feeling of the valleys, it creates more eagerness for the feelings of the peaks. So it's like there is a dance. That's why I don't believe in like negative emotions. All the emotions that I feel are necessary. I just want to create the space to feel them. And that is, again, it's super hard for me. But that's kind of the purpose of for me, is, can I position myself to feel? And like, we're only here 100 years if we're lucky. It's like, gosh, man. Anyway, I could go in a little
so good. I
All right.
I love it. Mike, we might have to do a part two because this is so good. Mike, let's talk systems, the very thing we promised everyone.
I'm here.
You mentioned the system you were going to give.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that one? And then let's circle back to just some very fundamental business systems that frankly you put in right at the outset while you were trying to switch over to being more systems oriented.
Great. The Time Rich 6 is its answers to both of the two questions. So Time Rich 6 is a framework. I didn't have it back then. I built it now, knowing what I know, to help people move a little bit quicker. So the first two of the Time Rich 6 are about founder lifestyle, and the last four of the Time Rich 6 are about business predictability. So number one is boundaries, and number two is communication guidelines. Those principles are to help with founder lifestyle. Boundaries, I need to know what I'm protecting. What are my priorities? My framework is the BFF triad. Business predictability is the foundation. F is family leadership. And then the other F is financial freedom. And underneath that is also generational wealth. So those are the priorities, helping coming back to the original statement, which is my business is a vehicle to pursue my life. It is not my life. So that triad of the predictability, so I can have family leadership and freedom. I want to have those things. The business is a vehicle to help me pursue those things. So I want to create boundaries around that to protect those priorities. That's number one. And then number two, communication guidelines is what are the rules of engagement on how people get my attention? What deems an email versus a phone call versus a text message versus an in-person meeting? How do I want people to get my attention? What people? Clients, prospects, and my team. How do I want those three parties to get my attention? And how do I want them to interact with me? Most of the time, business owners, especially guys in the trades, they just call my phone. Call me. My phone line is always open. Just give me a call. The challenge with that is we're now creating an environment where we're always entering into reaction mode. We're responding to the demands of everybody else. So instead, what I would recommend is respond to the demands only of those that, how can I say this, are the closest to revenue for you, right? If you it's a very direct, blunt way of saying this, but like if there's a way to mitigate how people get your attention by putting some parameters, like, hey, if it's an emergency, give me a call. I'm here for you. But if it could wait till tomorrow, fill out this contact form, and then someone from my company or myself will get back to you tomorrow during normal business hours. It's a request, not a demand. I don't want to lose business over this, but I'm at least going to create parameters. Hey, if it's after hours, shoot me a text message. If you absolutely need me, give me a call, but shoot me a text message instead, right? So we create these parameters. Instead of reaching out to me, let me direct that to my assistant. My office manager, whatever it might be. So boundaries, communication guidelines for founder lifestyle. Before I go into business predictability, comments, questions, curiosities on those first two.
I love both of those, and I love the depth to which they go, because a lot of times people just talk about boundaries and they don't actually say what that looks like. Let's keep going. I love it.
Cool. So the next four are about setting up the predictability in the business. So like the communication guidelines, great. That sounds great. I prefer an email. I prefer a text, but like how do you enforce that is based on how you set up the business. So these four are systems, playbooks, team, tech. Systems are like a flow chart. If then processes. That's it. If this happens, then I want this to happen. If they have an emergency, then I want them to call this phone number. If they don't have an emergency, then I want them to fill out this contact form. So that's all it is. It's just if-thens, processes. That's number one, or number four, or as far as the systems. And playbooks, right? So playbooks is the documentation of that play. So meaning the SOP or what are the rules, the instructions of how to do the thing, the guidelines. Then it's the team who's running the play. So who's following the playbook? Who's following the SOP? Is it an assistant? Is it an expert? Is it a doer? And then there's the technology. What is the technology that the team member is using? AI, a CRM, or project management software to execute it. So systems, playbooks, team, and tech are the four for creating predictability. And I'll give a couple of examples here if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So a friend of mine, Andrea Bryant, she runs a home staging company. She was an educator for like 25 years. She started a home staging company. She was working like 80-hour weeks. So we did this audit of her life and of her business. She was a friend of mine from Tony Robbins. And what we found out is she was lifting every couch. She was in her 40s with arthritis, lifting couches. Like, she's like telling me all the things that she's doing inside the business. So I said, okay, let's build some systems. The first system we need to do is we need to hire a couple of key players. So number one, what are the if-thens? If we need someone who is able to lift a couch, then we need to create a position description that is clearly defined of what are the roles and responsibilities for that, for that role. Great, that's the if-then. The playbook was, let's create the job ad, the description of the position, and we're going to post that onto Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups, because these guys aren't in Indeed. We're going to put it on social media and meet them where they're at. Ask some friends, whatever. Then who's doing that? Well, we have put in a virtual assistant offshore in Philippines to fire off these messages, fire off these emails, send all this out, handle all the responses, because Andrew should not be doing that because this is like $10, $15 an hour work. So we had a who, and then we used the technology. What was the technology? Well, we used social media, we used email. And then when AI started becoming more relevant, we started using AI so that her virtual assistants can write in like a little bit proper English and whatnot, but that we started using this tech solutions. We even got a cloud phone number for the team to use so that way they weren't coming to her phone. So this is just an example of a system playbook team in tech. We hired these key roles, we filled those, bought her time back, and now she had a little bit more time. We said, all right, what's the next system that we need to do? She's at a client journey. So then we started at the top of the funnel. We say, how do we make sure the clients, we can have a higher conversion rate? Because she was like, there's too many leads slipping through the cracks. So then we said, okay, what is the if-thens? If a lead comes in, how are we getting their information? She's like, well, they call me and I write it down on a notepad and I call them back at some point in time. It's like, okay, let's put a little button on the website that says, and contact, like instead of call me, like just say, put a little button, it says click here, and it pulls up their information, and let's do that. And then once we have their information, then it'll give an opportunity for them to call you, but then you can call them back if you don't get to the phone, or something simple like that. And then it was put a documentation there. Who's going to handle all those inquiries? We had someone handling the inquiries on the phone calls. What technology are they using? We use a CRM. At that point in time, it was like Active Campaign. Now she's on Go High Level. What's the so what? The so what is we can get into the weeds of the business based on this framework of where does it hurt? That's where we're going to start. Meaning, where are you bleeding time and where are you bleeding money? We're going to start there, figure out where it hurts, and then we're going to build predictability using system, if-then logic, playbooks, documentation, team, who's going to execute the plays, and then technology, how can we use tech to support the people that are executing those plays? I have probably another 6 or 7 examples. I've just been ranting for a long time, and I just want to kick it back to you. So,
Mike, this is so important. It's so important, especially for those of you listening. I just want to draw a reflection from what Mike just said. It was one problem at a time. And that's one of the biggest things that I really want us to focus on, is that it wasn't midway through the process of his systematic approach to systems playbook team. It was, okay, let's get through all the way and then we'll tackle the next one, because it's so easy. Mike, I see this time and time again where we're just starting to tackle, we're like 80% there when leadership calls or the partner comes in and has another fire, hence the reactivity. So how do we maintain the implementation of this process while not being so like drawn to the fire? Because there actually is something, I think, in us that we love a good fire. We love to be the hero. We love to be the savior. So what's a boundary we can have in place for us as the founders and operators of the business?
What we have found is immersion is the answer. Immersive experiences is the answer. It allows us to almost like kidnap the business owner and keep them in a space where they cannot go into reaction or distraction mode. So that's what we do. We call it an install program. We hold them captive and we meet with them for 2 to 3 days to build the infrastructure, build these systems and these playbooks, and plug a team in to get the things done fast in that focused environment. Why? Because in the past we had like coaching programs, we had courses, and it was like piecemeal, an hour here, an hour there. And it was just like so overwhelming because it was like pieced together over time. And to your point, there was always fires and reactions. So now, like, I know this is our offer of what we do with Better Than Rich, but anybody listening to this, you can do this. You sit down and create a war room with your team, and there is nothing else. We're not in the war zone. We're creating a war room to prepare for the war zone so we can win the battle, and that's what we do. So we just did this. I just did this last weekend. He runs a landscape lighting company, just right about a 7-figure landscape lighting, outdoor lighting company, and we built out. I'll look rapid fire real quick. 12-month re-engagement campaign after the point of sale. So the sale is made, and how to create an 11-month sequence so we could get back into their home before their 1-year labor warranty expires. So we could sell them a service agreement along with any upsells and repair anything that is under warranty still. So it was an 18 touch point sequence that's automatically done. So we created all the copy for the email, text, the direct mail, the voice drops, and we recorded everything with videos and everything. All done, put it into a CRM. Now it's done. So the next person that buys, that sequence is done. So next year, he's going to have all these service agreements, service appointments. Another one, a 21-day engagement campaign after they opt in for a lead magnet, which was a lookbook on his website. So we built the lookbook. They click a button, and now there's a 21-day sequence of communication between his company and the prospect, so he can nurture the relationship with ideal goal of booking a call with him, which brings up the next one, a discovery call model. So when they book the call, it has a 3 email sequence with videos prepping them for the call. And then once they're done with the call, setting up an on-site visit with a 3 email sequence with videos prepping them for the on-site visit. So it's creating pre-frames about budget, expectations, what differentiates us from the competitors. So it's a very predictable sequence built. We did all the recordings, all the copy, all the language, all the templates, installed it right into the CRM. So it's all able to happen behind the scenes. Same thing with meta ads. Someone fills out the link on a meta ad. What happens after they click the button? Built an entire sequence. It's like maybe a 45-day sequence that someone enters into after they just say, I'm interested in this, after he sees the meta ad that was shown, so we can nurture the relationship with the prospect with the hopes of booking the call. So then they go into the other sequence. And the last one is all of his past clients. Anyone he has not done this with, and he's like kind of neglected them for 5 years, a 90-day re-engagement campaign to reinvest into those relationships, to get back in front of them and nurture those relationships. So we all done in 2.5 days, done. He's on a plane, and it's just all implemented. So implementation is more significant than cool ideas. So we restructured our offer to that. The purpose of me sharing this is not about Nick and who we did this with. It's anyone listening to this. You don't need us to do this. You need to create. This is what needs to get done. You shut the doors, you shut off the distractions, and you do absolutely nothing except war room style, 9 to 5, get the thing done, build it with your team, and then install it into the business. None of this piecemeal stuff. And also, last point here, Christine, stay out of the clouds of like cool ideas. Our 5-year vision is going to be this, and we're excited about these goals and all that. No, that into the business today and get it done. Done is better than perfect. And this fairy tale goal stuff, I used to be in that space. It's just foo-foo, and it still doesn't solve the actual problems that are in front of us.
Mike, as you've been talking, I've just been thinking this has to be one of the most important things for every single business owner, whether they're in the trade space or not. And just honestly, every single person, actually do it. Set aside time, go into the war room, leave your phone out, do the work. Because the second you pick this thing up, man, it just derails you, and it takes you so much time to come back into focus to what you were doing. I love it. I think that no matter your gender, your industry, your role, this thing, man, it will always, this phone has so much potential to bring us out of the moment. And you were talking about presence earlier. There's so much potency in presence and what can actually be done when we're really here in the moment, what can be built when we pay attention. So this immersion process, Mike, thank you. It's gold, what you're saying. And I'm so grateful for it, because it is easy to dream, especially as owners. vision is so much more exciting sometimes than the present.
Yeah. And I had this conversation with Ron Nussbaum. He's a mutual friend. I know you did a
Yes.
podcast exchange. So I was recently on his show, and he does something similar with his company. I think more people in the trades that are going to do this immersive component, if you have a service that you're offering, is to like go out into the field or go meet with these people in person. It's higher ticket, it's higher touch, it's more expensive. However, it gets the thing installed into the business. So implementation is more significant than strategy. But when you could have both of those two together with an expert, someone who's going to give you the strategy and implement into your business, it's worth paying the premium, which is uncomfortable, but it's going to get the ROI faster. So it's like, if you want to move fast, installation is going to be better than information. And I really do believe that the guys in the trades have a vehicle in their business to, if they move fast, they can recoup their investment so quick because the demand for the trades is so high. If they're electrical or plumbing or HVAC or roofing or garage door, I mean, there's so many homeowners out there that their home needs something, and it's just like, if you have your top, especially your top of funnel dialed in, there's always a home that could be worked on. They just need to know you exist. They need to know why they should choose you, what your differentiator is, that you're going to take care of them, that you're going to do good work. And you just need to convey that and communicate that as in the trades. So that's why it's like, have a site that works, a website that works, have automations that create a good user experience, have a predictable client journey that they feel connected to you without talking to you necessarily, right? These are certain things that you can do and build and create. And it doesn't have to cost you like $500,000 to do this stuff. And it doesn't have to take you 5 years to do this stuff either. So that's what we like to specialize in, is really lay some of that foundational work to buy back those hours, but then also give that opportunity where ROI can exist as fast as possible.
So good. Mike,
return on investment, just so we capture that. Return on investment, ROI.
My last question for you. You have a whole lot of books behind you. I see From Good to Great by Jim Collins. I think I see 10X is Better Than 2X. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Dave Papasan. $100 million offers, leads, and your book. Tell us your favorite book. You mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad as a book that really catalyzed you. What's another 2 books in addition to your own?
No, don't worry about my book. My books were written like 10 years ago, and that version of me is not the same version of me. So Grab Tomorrow was yesterday. So I have Buy Back Your Time highlighted on my shelf. I know it's hard to see in the frame. I don't know if you can see it in the frame, so I'll just bring it over here. But Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell is a great one because it simplifies the idea of delegation admin work. So replacement ladder, administrative, marketing, fulfillment, sales, and leadership. And he has just like great frameworks. 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. 10-80-10 rule of delegation. I do the first 10%, you do the middle 80%, and then I'll do the final 10% to make sure. Like, a lot of that is really, really good. So I love Buy Back Your Time. I studied it. I teach it. I implement it into my life and business. So Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell is a great one. For someone in the trade specifically, I will recommend The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If someone has not read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, he talks about systems thinking. There's specifically an E-Myth for contractors version of that. And I really think that if you read that, you will reimagine what it means to be in business, running a predictable machine, creating an exceptional user experience. And one of the examples he talks about in the book is going to a hotel and ordering a coffee at the restaurant, but then the next morning, that coffee that he ordered at the restaurant is also in his room, and they were set it as a timer to go off when they asked him what time he was going to wake up. It was synced with the alarm to like make the coffee at the same time.
Oh my gosh!
Food delivered to the room. It was just like an exceptional user experience at the hotel staff, and how they built the documentation and all the predictability around it. It's a really, really cool book. It's a great story. Michael Gerber's E-Myth is a great one, and Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell is a great one.
Amazing. How can people learn more about you, Mike? I'm so grateful for what you're doing and the freedom you're buying people.
Well, forget about me. I'd like to give a gift to everybody. Like they can stay in touch with me, but if they go to betterthanrich.com/GSD for get shit done, you'll hop on my calendar, and whatever you need in your business on anything we talked about, like a system installed, or you need a custom AI for your business, or you just are like, you don't know where to start, or you're like stuck at this, that will
Wow.
take you directly to me. I will build 4 systems for you fast. No pitch, no US. I do this for 2 reasons. Number one, it's market research. The more conversations I have, the more I learn about where it hurts for guys in the trades, and then we can solve for them with our paid offerings. But number two, every time at the end of those conversations, the reason why there's no pitch is because I will ask the question, was this helpful for you? And they'll say yes. I say, great. Would you mind giving us a testimonial about your experience with us? And that's going to be the best currency that I can get. So the more value I could add to the marketplace, then the more people are saying this was so helpful, which helps us with our marketing and everything. So it's a win-win. And that's what I like to create as far as adding value. So betterthanrich.com/GST. GSD, I will get you a win. I promise you. And all I ask in return is if it was helpful, is just to let us know it was helpful so we can share that with other people.
What a good offer. You said 4 systems in 30 minutes, no pitch. That's great. Mike, I love it. I love it. I'm so grateful for your time, my friend. Thank you. And go to betterthanrich.com/GSD and you can book that time with Mike directly. Mike, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
I will see you all